Hi friends, welcome to this session, and in this video we will be pulling Ubuntu Docker image from Docker Hub and try to perform some commands on image and the container. So go to Docker Hub, search for the Ubuntu and click on the official images. Select the very first image that has 10 million plus downloads, and we can copy the pull command, but it's always a good practice that instead of you using the latest version of the image, you search for the stable one and try to pull that. So here I'm selecting 20.10. So let's copy this and go to command prompt, paste it and hit enter. So what this is going to do is this is going to pull the image from the Docker Hub and download it to your local system. So let's try to see the image list, and now you can see that we have Ubuntu 20.10. Okay, now let's try to run the container. The command is docker run, okay, and followed by the repository name, that is Ubuntu 20.10. okay, so if I hit enter, let's see what happens, and you can see that the container was created and we can list all the containers using container LSA. This will show you all the running as well as previously running containers. And you can see that we have Ubuntu created but in exited status. Okay, so the very first thing that we will look at is the name here. You can see that the name is randomly generated and assigned to the container. So instead of having a random name, we can give our own name when creating the container. How we can do that? Let's see. The very first thing is let's clean up the containers. So prune is nothing but it will clean or remove the stopped containers. So it will ask you for, are you sure you want to remove all the stopped containers? I would say yes, and this will remove all my stopped containers. Now what I'll do is I'll again use the run command, and here I'll use a flag called name. This is the name option, and I'll name this as Ubuntu container. And if I hit enter, and now you can see that the name is Ubuntu container. Okay, now let's try another command. Okay, one thing you can see here is the Ubuntu container, when we create it, it directly goes into exited status, and the reason is the containers, okay, the container lifespan is the lifespan of the process running inside the container. That means if there is no process or task running inside the container will exit or stop. Okay, so that's the reason why here in Ubuntu, when we run the container, as we don't have any process within it, it goes into exited status. Okay, again you can notice here there is a command that says bin bash. This is something that gets executed when the Ubuntu container is running. So how do we get this? If you go back to the Docker Hub and click on the image, you can see that in the file there is cmd instruction. This is nothing but a command instruction. This is the default, okay, for the Docker containers. Okay, and we have mentioned, and the file mentions here bin bash, and that's the reason why you get it here, the bash shell command here. Okay, now how do we get inside the container? How do we interact with the container? So there are commands that we can use to interact with the container. Let's see that. Okay, first thing is let's execute this command. Okay, how do we replace this command? To do that, first let me clean up and try to do that again. What I'll do is docker container prune again. I'll clear it. Now this time I'm going to do is docker run. I'll give the name as Ubuntu container and followed by the image name, that is Ubuntu 20.10, and this time I will specify the command. The command is sleep 200. That means I'm passing a sleep command for 200 seconds, and this will be placed in the command here, in the command instruction. Okay, so the bin bash will be replaced by the command that we are passing here, and that will be executed when the container runs. Okay, so that way we can try to log in or get inside the container and try to see the file structure or the file system of the container. But here one thing to notice is whenever we run the container, it runs in foreground, okay, by default. So to demo that, let me do here something called sleep 10, and if I hit enter, and you can see that my cursor is in the foreground. I can't do anything till this 10 seconds command is completed. Now I'm kicked out because my container is stopped. Okay, now I'm outside the container or the foreground process and in the command terminal. So let's see that if the container was created by ls. Okay, I don't have anything in running state, and you can see that the command that was replaced from bin bash is now the sleep 10, and it was exited. So this was something that default behavior where the container runs in foreground. There is an option where you can say a container to run in background, and the option is called detached option. So how we can use it. Before that, let's try to clean up so we can reuse the same name. Now what I'll do is here I'm going to use sleep again, sleep 200 this time, and I'll use detached option. D is for detached. Now what this will do is this will run the container in background. Now I'm using 200 seconds sleep time because with that now we can interact with the container for 200 seconds, and that way see what exactly is inside the container. So if you hit enter, and the detach option returns you the container ID, okay, so that you can use to view the container, and you can see that the status is up and the container ID is the shorter version of the whole string here. So now let's try to interact with the container. We have an option called execute, okay, and let's try to use that. Docker container, and we are doing this with a container, so it's a management command. So container execute, and the other option that I'm going to use is IT. Now I is interactive, T is terminal. I'll tell you what it is, and then followed with the container ID, that is 04. I can use just the starting two letters of the whole string, and then followed by bash. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm saying that I'm trying to interact with the container with execute command, and this execute, so when I land inside the container, what is that I want to start? I want to start a bash shell. That is what I'm trying to say here. And IT is nothing but interactive. It is something, I is interactive. That means you're trying, a user can now key in or give inputs to the terminal, to the console, you can say. Okay, now how the console here, you need to bind the console to the container terminal, and that is how you do that by using T option. So I is for the interactive mode, T is for the terminal binding. Okay, that there might be something like if you're a Java developer, to take the input from the user, you will be using system APIs, right? So something like similar to that. I is to enable the interactive mode where user can input the values, and T is to bind the terminals from your command line to the terminal in the container. So let's see what happens if we hit enter here. And if I hit enter, now you can see that I am inside the container and the user is root @ the container ID, and this is my bash shell. Now if I do ls, I can execute any Linux based command that is for Ubuntu, and you can see the file system here is similar to what we have for Linux based operating system, and here we are using Ubuntu. Okay, so now once 200 seconds, the command here is for 200 seconds. Once that is completed, okay, and there are no tasks running, what happens is it will kick me out of the container to the command prompt. That is my C column. But if you want to get out of this container, you can just say exit and you will be kicked out of the container. Okay, so that way you can interact with the container, and you can see more commands by using help command. You can see docker run help, and you can see that all these are the commands that you can use, and most of this we'll be seeing in our future sessions when we create Docker images. Like we saw detached, okay, then we have environment. This is something that we'll be seeing in our future sessions. We saw interactive, okay, and publish. This is something when we want to publish the ports that are inside the container to the external world that is outside the container. We use publish option. We also saw T option and the volume and work directory. This is something that we will be looking in a future session. So for now, I think we are good with the basic commands that we can use, and the most used, I guess, we'll be regularly using the execute command, okay, of the container. You can also check that by using container help. Okay, you can see that we have inspect. This is something that we'll look into now. Then we have prune, restart, stop. All these commands we can use with container. Okay, so one command that we can use is inspect. Basically, if you have a container running or in stop status, if you want to check all the details of that container, you can use inspect command. So let's try to do that. You have docker container ls a, and let's try to use the inspect command. Docker container inspect followed by the docker ID, the container ID, and if I hit enter, and you can see that it's a JSON format of all the data here. Now you can see that if you scroll down, you have network information, you have the mounts that are available, currently none, but you have configuration, the host name, okay, and then you also have all the other information, the name of the container that we gave, that is Ubuntu container. And if we scroll up, it has the ID, the whole complete string. It is when it was created, and all those information, even the arguments that we passed sleep command with argument 200. So all this information, if you think that you want to get all of the complete details of the container, then you can use inspect command. So I hope now you are familiar with some of the basic commands of container as well as run. And that's all for this video, and I'll see you in the next session.